Okay, welcome back to Believe You Are a Good Mom. Happy to have you. Thanks for being here. I'm Emily Wardrop from Drop the Word Life Coaching, and today I've got Laura Dry in the house.
Hello.
Hi. Actually, she's in Canada, so she
I
might say
am.
A. She might say
I don't say A. I don't think that I
progress.
do. I don't think
No, I don't.
I do that.
I
But
don't.
there are lots of people that do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Laura, let's just jump in. Tell everybody all about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Laura Dry. I'm a life and confidence coach for moms. And long story short, I could not wait to be a mom. It was my dream to just grow up and find my husband and have kids and live happily ever after. And then the ever after didn't really come. And
Mhm.
I had all the things that I ever wanted. And I just remember being kind of miserable.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where my story begins. Um, so I guess fast forward, I had a friend who had said, "Hey, my sister told me about this podcast. And I started listening to it and it's so great. And maybe you should listen to it." And my friend had no idea that that is exactly what I needed. And
Mhm.
so the podcast was Jody Moore's podcast,
Woo-hoo.
actually.
Mhm.
And I started learning all about all sorts of amazing things that thoughts create my feelings and that like how to process emotions and all of these things. And I started to realize that the way that I was feeling in my motherhood wasn't due to my kids. It wasn't due to my husband. It wasn't because of the things that I thought that it was.
Yeah.
And I realized from that point that I could change how I felt. I could change my life. I could be happy in my motherhood. And I kind of started on this journey, not realizing at the time that it was going to be a confidence journey for me.
Mhm.
But looking back, I think that one of the main things that was missing from me was self-confidence, was knowing who I was finding myself and being confident in me. And a big piece of that is the things that I think about myself.
Mhm.
And this is what I'm passionate about helping other moms with because I think we underestimate. I mean, I think my go to when I wasn't feeling good about motherhood and myself was to get really busy doing things, was to
Mhm.
take action on, okay, I can be a perfect mom by doing X, Y, and Z, like birthday parties and the teacher gifts and just
Mhm.
doing things that would help me feel like I was a good mom
Mhm.
and doing things that would make me feel like I was also a good person. Like
Mhm.
if I have lots of friends and if I it was like a lot of comparison, like I need to be like other people or I need to be and none of that was looking within. It was all looking outside of me. And so I think we underestimate as moms the importance of working on ourselves, which doesn't include any of those outside things.
Yeah.
Working on ourselves and knowing ourselves and taking time to really dive into what's going on in our brain
Mhm.
and creating that confidence in us first. And that is an amazing way to show up the way that we want for our families and our kids and as a mom. And
Yeah.
so maybe that was a little bit longer than a short story, but that's kind of where I'm at now. And I'm so grateful every day that I get to help other moms work on their relationships with this with themselves and
Awesome.
build confidence.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so I have a million things to say about that, but first tell us about your family.
Yeah, so I am, like I said, I'm a mom. I have 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy. My oldest is 14, so we're into the teenage years, which is a
Mhm.
whole new kettle of fish. I've got a tween who's been like since she was born. I feel like she was born a teen
3
or a
maybe?
tween.
Mhm.
And then an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old boy at the caboose.
Yeah.
And so kind of in two worlds with parenting. I still got the littles and I'm getting these teenagers as well. So
Yeah. That's funny
That's
that
kind of
you say is the littles, because as mine turned 7, I'm like, oh, they're phasing out of being little. Like it's like that 8 to 10 range is like, oh, I guess they're not young kids anymore. Because that's what
it's
I say,
true.
coach moms with young kids. And then when their kids are teenagers and they're looking at 7 or 8, they're like, oh yeah, they're so little. And I'm like, my oldest are 7 and 8. So I'm like, oh, they're so old.
Isn't it
Uh,
so funny, that perspective of it?
yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is fun because I interview a lot of moms who are like empty nesters. And I'm like, I don't know why I keep doing this, but I love that light at the end of the tunnel perspective that they have, and like looking back and what would they have told their past self and things like that. And so you're like, in that, like the teenager years. And I find listening to teenage coaches, like people who coach teenagers, is very fascinating because you can just insert toddler for teenager. I feel like toddlers
Yeah.
and teenagers have a lot of things in common. And as I've parented my toddlers, like I've heard suggestions on how to parent teenagers that I think it's been really awesome. So anyway, but anyway, any perspective of like as you've phased out of this phase that we're in is very
It's so funny because I was just telling my sister-in-law, we were at a birthday party last weekend. My little nephew just turned 1.
oh,
And I was saying to her, I'm like, yeah, like, because we're totally in different stages now. Like she's got the real littles, like she's got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I just said to her how funny it is because her 1-year-old's still not sleeping through the night. And I'm saying, yeah, but he will.
mm-hmm.
And I have a teenager who won't wake up
Uh-huh.
in the morning, right? Like I've
Yeah.
got a teenager who wants to sleep till noon and doesn't really want to spend time with the family as much as she used to. And
Mhm.
you have this 1-year-old who won't sleep through the night and you want to have maybe a little break from your kids. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Yeah.
it's just so interesting. And I just said to her, it's easier said than done, but how can we just enjoy all of the moments in motherhood because they really are fleeting. They really go by fast. And it's so hard when you're in it because when
Mhm.
you're in it, you're like, oh, I'm in it and I just need a break from this right
Yeah.
now. And I say, yeah, take your break,
Mhm.
but also enjoy it because
And you
it's
can enjoy it more when you get breaks. So make sure
yes,
you take your breaks for sure.
exactly. But
Yeah.
just know like whatever stage that we're in, we have to find
Yeah.
joy in it because
Yeah.
it's not like I think from that stage that she's in, she sees my stage and thinks, oh, that's going to be nice.
Mhm.
But
And then
our
from your
brains
stage, you're like, oh,
change.
that was nice. So,
And I do. I
yeah.
think back and I'm like, oh, it was so much better when my
Mhm.
kids had this false sense of control, I think, of
Yeah,
over
exactly.
them because I
Mhm.
kind of called more of the shots, whereas now they're a lot more independent. And so, yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
that's the
is,
exact thing that I think about with that teenager toddler thing is agency. Like we think
mhm,
that when they're little that we can control them, and having given up that illusion really early is really helpful.
totally. And because it is that
Yeah.
control piece, it really is an illusion.
Yeah.
We never have control. We only have control over us.
Yes, and that's made all the difference for me. So,
Yeah.
all right, so many things. Let's get to confidence, okay?
Yeah.
Because when I think of confidence, I think of like self-esteem or like confident, like because I know I could do something or whatever. Like I always felt like a self-confident person, and
Mhm.
then I became a mom.
Yeah.
And so the difference is like I knew how to do the things I knew how to do. Like I was not a confident sports player, say like I had to play young women's basketball and I would go out there and it would just be the worst. I had no confidence on the basketball court because I didn't know how to play. I had no interest. This is just not my thing, right? Versus like I'd go to a youth dance and I'd go out there and like make a fool out of myself dancing, but it was fun, And so I felt confident on the dance floor, but not on the basketball court. The reason I didn't feel confident as a mom is because I didn't know what I was doing. Like that was my
Yeah.
thought. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I would read books to teach me what to do. And I do swear by The Happiest Baby on the Block. That book is like perfect for like a new mom who's like, I don't know what to do. Somebody tell me what to do. but that's only for the first 3 months is what you do, like that book. And so then that author, his next book isn't until like they're 3 years old or something. It's like a toddler book. And so I was like, what do I do from 3 months to 3 years? And so I'm like reading all these books and people are suggesting books and they say different things. And so I'm even more confused. Confusion is like the opposite of confidence. It's like, I just continue to believe that thought that like, I don't know what to do and I'm doing it wrong. And so everything I read, if it told me to do it this way and I wasn't doing it that way, then that meant that I was wrong. And like you said, when we believe that doing things means we're a good mom or not, then how was I supposed to believe I was a good mom when I was doing everything wrong? And so that was where my lack of confidence, I think, came in.
Yeah.
And so, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think there is this level of, because I mean, I'm sure I haven't done this lately, but if you look up the definition of confidence, you are gonna see a definition of when you're good at things, right? Like you are confident in something. And so let's say if my son wants me to pour him a glass of milk, I'm pretty confident that I can pour that milk and not spill it. He, on the other hand, he's not as confident in that because his muscles are still growing and it's a big jug and it's hard for him and he's not as practiced at it. And so he maybe isn't as confident, and we can use that definition. But I really love to say what confidence isn't. Confidence isn't actually being really good at stuff, because you can be a confident mom and not know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the reason that can be true is because of, well, the definition that I love to share with my clients and moms about what I believe true confidence really is. And it, simply put, true confidence is the things you think about yourself. It's your ability to allow any and feel any emotion, knowing that it's not going to kill you or hurt you. And it's being able to trust yourself, being able to show up for yourself, being able to offer yourself compassion. And if we are more focused on those 3 things and growing those 3 things in our life, that is where true confidence is going to come. Because if you think about like what drew you to read those books is you wanting to learn, you wanting to, and I think that there's a level of trusting yourself that you could figure it out. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. That's a fun, different way to look at it.
Yeah. And so I love to just like I've changed my mind about what true confidence actually is. And I think that there can be more than one definition. And if the current definition that you have of confidence isn't serving you, then let's change that. Let's change what confidence means, because I think that as moms, we're not going to be perfect at everything. As humans, we're not perfect at everything. And so when we tie that onto confidence, it makes it kind of impossible, because we're not going to be perfect. Like that is something that we're not going to be able to attain in this life.
Yeah.
And so tying that onto our confidence, being able to do things in a certain way, I don't think really is very helpful.
Yeah. And that's exactly my whole point of this podcast, right? Is when you believe that you are a good mom, as in those are your thoughts about yourself, because that's what you said confidence is the way you think about yourself.
Yes.
So if you think about yourself as a good mom enough, then you believe that you are. That's the secret to believing something, is thinking it enough that you actually believe it. And so in those days when I was thinking I'm doing it wrong, and therefore that makes me a bad mom, then I just continued in that pattern, Totally. But I broke the pattern by believing, because earlier said it's knowing who I was, like knowing who you are, like actually are, not what you're doing, right, is the secret that I pound the pulpit on every podcast. So my listeners are familiar with this message, but I love that, like the confidence piece to go with it, because also, we're both trained at the life coach school with the model, and confidence, if you put it in the feeling line, you feel confident, like we're saying, because of our thoughts about ourselves. So when I think I am a good mom, I feel confident. Like that's one of the feelings that I often put in that in that
the T
motto.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the FO.
totally.
So, and then I like that trust yourself piece, because it's like,
I mean, I
that's
love,
kind of what's missing.
well, so many of us moms are so hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
and that trusting piece, I think, goes really, and this is something that so many moms struggle with, and maybe they don't even realize they struggle with it.
Yeah.
But trusting yourself doesn't mean like you're gonna trust that you're gonna, again, show up perfectly.
Right.
It's what you do when you don't. It's how you treat yourself when maybe you fall short. It's how you treat yourself after you lose your temper and yell at your kids, and trusting that you can offer yourself compassion and grace in those moments. Like,
Mhm.
that's one piece of it. And then the other piece is like, are you living in line with your priorities? What are your priorities? Do you even know what your priorities are as a mom? Like, this is the work
Yeah.
that so many of us overlook, that's so important as part of confidence. And do you trust yourself to be able to do that work that's most important?
Yeah. So good. Okay. Tell us the story about the lions.
Yeah. So you touched a little bit on like knowing who you are
Uh-huh.
and how like that's so important as we are working on our confidence. And I think that is like really a foundation of, it's not only just the thoughts that I think about myself, but it's underneath that is like, who am I really actually?
Yeah.
And, you know, I believe that I am a daughter of God. And I think that there is such confidence that we can pull from just that. And I was, when was it? It was just over a year ago. I was walking my dog and I was listening to an audiobook called Confidence by Kathy Clayton. And she shared this amazing story. It had me in tears. But basically, her and her family were on location. That's not the right word, but they did a lot of traveling for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for different callings and things that they were doing. And one of these callings that I think her husband had was in Argentina. And so her and her son at the time, youngest son, was still at home, and they had a lot of free time during the day. And so they would frequently go to, it's called the Lujan Zoo in Argentina. And this zoo is so different to any of the zoos that I've ever been to, in that you are allowed to actually go into the pens with the animals and you can pet the animals. And among some of the animals that you're allowed to go in and pet are the lions, right? Lions, who are notoriously known for being very aggressive. And, you know, I just think, man, bite my face off. Like, I don't want to go in with the lions. And so she recounts the story of her going into the lion pen and being able to pet these lions, like these amazing beasts. And she did notice, well, actually, when she came out of the enclosure, she was asking the people that worked at the zoo, like, what did you do to these lions? Why do they not want to eat me? And so they pointed her attention to these little dogs that were running around the pens, kind of in the corners. And they had told her that from the time that these lion cubs were born, these little dogs, who were at the time bigger than the lions, would run around in these pens. These pesky little dogs would run around nipping at these little lion cubs' heels. And these lion cubs grew up with these dogs. And these lions just didn't know that with the flick of their paw, they could send these dogs flying, right? And they didn't see their true selves. They didn't see their regal identity. They didn't see their power. And it was just such a great example to me of how maybe we as women and moms are living. Like, we don't actually recognize our power. We don't recognize sometimes who we truly are and our true potential because we've got these pesky dogs nipping at our heels. And I think some of our biggest pesky dogs is self-doubt, can be mom guilt. There's so
Compare
many.
and despair.
There's so many comparisons, yes, to others. But we as moms, if we really think about it, we know what our pesky dogs are. And
Yeah.
if we don't know, I mean, I think
A
that's
coach can help you figure it out.
exactly. But for so many of us, those pesky dogs, they keep us small. Um, they keep us showing up in the ways that we are meant to, or that we can be. And I just love that visual in my mind of we have so much potential, and how often do we not see it or recognize it because we are distracted. We're
Mhm.
distracted with these pesky dogs nipping
Yeah.
at our heels.
And I have so much compassion for those lions and for us, because the reason was because it was like from birth, these
Totally.
pesky dogs, like, and so not to like pour on even more mom guilt, which I feel like I use all parenting tools to against myself, but for our children also, like we need to help them nurture who they are, because it's our voices in their heads that they're going to hear the rest of their life. And that's not pretty sometimes. And so when we know who we are, when we believe this about ourselves, it's that much easier to transfer to our kids versus um like it's just the reparenting process that we have to do, right? That we need to heal ourselves from the voices in our head that we grew up with, that we're doing the best they could and all the things, and like so much compassion for everybody in the whole generational healing cycle,
Yeah.
and then try to pass that forward to our kids. But it's like we try to skip the step of healing ourselves. We're like, oh, I'm just going to be a better mom than my mom was. And then we like white knuckle it, we're like, why do I get so triggered by these kids? It's from childhood wounds, like just so much compassion for like where we came from and why we are where we are. And that, yeah, like we're going to transfer some pain onto them too, but we're doing our best to heal ourselves and all the things. Anyway, and just the biggest component of the self-healing that I've experienced is from this concept of believing who I am, like knowing who I am. Because I can see it so clearly when I look at them. I'm like, their worth and their value and everything is just so set. And when my daughter goes into like these weird shame moments, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. She's like, yeah, but I just did I'm like, who cares that you just did whatever? Like you are so, like you just are good, And so that's the message that I'm always preaching, is that we are good even though we did whatever. And there's no way to like do enough stuff to believe that we're a good mom. We just are. And so as we see ourselves like those lions and have compassion for the pesky dog in our heads still,
Yeah. Something that's just coming up as you're talking for me is just maybe there's some moms out there that think, oh, they maybe have teenagers, and they think, oh, there's no hope now. Like it's too
Mm,
late.
mm,
And I just think that it's so easy for our brains to think that like we've screwed up our kids, or we're not confident in ourselves. And so we haven't been the best example that we want to be. And so maybe we feel a little bit hopeless, or like there's no point in trying. And what I want to say to that is I have found for myself that even just the smallest of um effort that I put in to work on myself, it has these domino effects. When I'm really looking and seeing, it really does make a difference. And so I don't know, my brain can sometimes get overwhelmed with like I need to have perfect confidence and I need to be better so that I can then help my kids learn to be more confident.
yeah.
And it's not an overnight thing.
Or a
It
one and
really
done
is.
thing.
Oh, right. And it is a journey. And I think like just as much as um I wished things were different for me growing up, like I wished my mom would show up in a certain way and I made a list of the mom that I want to be. Like
Mhm,
all of that was actually happening for me.
mhm.
And I think we underestimate the power of how we show up in our perfectly imperfectness,
Yeah.
and how that is part of the plan for our kids too. And so don't discount like first of all, like you're not screwing up your kids. We're all having, you are the perfect mom for your kids, and we're all having the experience that we need to have to learn the things that we need to learn.
Yeah.
But also, if you want to improve your confidence, if you want to show up differently, even the smallest of effort that you put in to do that, it's going to have a good effect. Like it's going to have a domino effect in your life and the life of your family.
Yeah, that's so good. So just this week, I started realizing, like, because we make this so big, so heavy, and so important, it's like, I can't screw up my kids. I got to figure out this confidence thing now. I got to heal my pesky dog so that I'm not the pesky dog for my kids. Like, and then we get all stressed out, overwhelmed, and
yeah, it's like today I'm going to show up and I'm not going to judge anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm going to like not let any self-doubt in, and I'm not going to do any of these things. Right. And it's like you're trying to micromanage all of it.
Yeah. And so my latest thought is like, Jesus knew that what he had, everyone needed, right? Like he is the healing power that we're talking about here, like that we need to tap into. But he didn't like run around in this crazy, like rushed and panicky mode of like, I gotta spread my message to everybody. This is like so important, and this is so big, and this is so heavy. And so why was that? Like, why was he able to be so chill about it and like so subtle, And that's how I want to be. Like, it's like when I get fired up about something and I'm like, this is so big, this is so important, everybody needs this. It's like I want to be like Abish, running door to door and like telling people about Abish, like waited until the time was right, and it's like, I don't know. This is all just kind of a jumble mess because it's a new thought. But the point is, it's like, it's not as big and heavy and overwhelming as we make it. It's like, the way he was able to do that is because he has an eternal perspective, and he knows like everyone's on their own journeys. Our kids are on their own journeys. Everything that you just said about how we are perfectly imperfect, and like, and he gets it. Like he really does understand that like the experiences we're having here are for our good. Everything is for our good. And so he's not like in a rush to fix things, so we don't need to be in a rush to fix our teenager or our toddler who's like, whatever issue they're having is like part of their growth and development. And he's not like rushing in there to be like, hello, you need me, here I am, and so we don't need to be rushing in there and panicking that our adult children are like leaving the church. Like, come on, Jesus, he's the answer, let's go. It's like, it's all good because of the eternal perspective, I think, is why he was able to be so chill about it.
Yeah. And I mean, that is, I love that because yeah, when we do have that eternal perspective, that's really abundant.
Yeah.
That's not panicky, and that's not scarce. And it's not a, like, I have to get to this certain level.
Yeah.
I think that all of the experiences that we have on earth, they really are just for us. And when we try and, I don't know, I have an A-type personality and like that control. And like when we try and micromanage the experience that we're meant to have, I think that's where the panic and the scarcity comes from. And then we miss out on the journey. Like we miss out on the things that we're meant to see, or that we're meant to just surrender to and include God in, because we're trying to do it all on our own. Like we're trying to just be this like idea of a mom or have this life that we think that we're meant to have, instead of like allowing it to happen organically.
Yeah. And like, that's what confidence is, right? Is kind of just having that abundant mentality of that it's all good, we don't need to freak out about this.
It's just allowing things to be what they are. And like I said, like you're going to have thoughts, and then you're going to have feelings about those. And if those feelings are really uncomfortable, are you willing to allow those feelings, knowing that you can handle emotions, knowing where those feelings are coming from without trying to fix them? Because that's what gets us in trouble when we're trying to like
and our
fix.
Kids.
Yes. When we're trying to fix our feelings, we have a thought like, oh no, our kids don't have a testimony, or they're leaving the church. And that creates panic. Like we need to fix that. Or I want them to, because of some idea that we have in our brain about what that means about us as a mom or what that means about them and their salvation. And it creates scarcity.
Yeah.
And I just remember a coach of mine saying, like, God's not in the rush.
Yeah.
God's never in the rush. And that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that, Jesus wasn't rushing around forcing people to hear his message. Yeah. He was an example of the message, and those who were ready took part in it.
Yeah. 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 So that's kind of our charge to figure that out. Okay. So any last thoughts, or should we just wrap up and you can tell people how to get more thoughts from you?
Yeah. I think my one last thought, and as I was thinking about being here with you today, and we kind of already touched on this, but just how much we underestimate the importance of having a positive and confident relationship with ourselves. And I want to reiterate that doesn't mean going out and making sure you have bubble baths a lot and getting a pedicure. Like, those are awesome, great things to take care of yourself. But your true confidence in yourself is going to come from noticing and recognizing the beliefs that you have about yourself, the things that you're thinking about yourself. And if some of those things are not kind or are a little bit dangerous going on in your brain, then we have the capability as humans to think about our thinking and to change our thoughts. Like, our thoughts are not set in stone. We have power to change those thoughts, but we can't change something that we don't know. And so many of our thoughts are unconscious, and we don't even recognize that they're going on. And so it is so important when I realized, oh, thoughts create feelings. What am I even thinking? Really diving into what's going on inside my own brain, because that's what your relationship is made up of. That's what all your relationships are made up of, is your thoughts. And so don't underestimate the impact that you can have on your life and those in your circle from just paying attention to what you're thinking about you and those beliefs. So that's really the message I wanted to share.
So good. Okay, a couple things. So your thoughts are not set in stone. Who you are is.
Yeah.
Because I love to use the analogy, the example, the metaphor, whatever it is, of David and Michelangelo. So Michelangelo's, somebody allegedly asked him, like, how do you make these amazing sculptures? And he says, I just chip away the marble until David appears. And so believing that I am David inside, like it's who I am, and that I'm just chipping away these limiting beliefs, these, pesky dogs. Yeah. And that that the thoughts that I think about myself are not what's carved in stone. Like, when I get into my heart and my soul and I know things about myself, those are what's carved in stone, and they're just covered up by the pesky dog thoughts.
Yeah.
And so to really remember,
just because you're thinking it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. Okay. So awesome. And then, speaking of lions, this is really fun because I just came up with this new offer today that I'm really excited about, and I call it RBCs. It's my Christmas present to everyone for the whole next year. And I Googled what RBC stands for, because I'm like, when I say I'm giving away RBCs, I wonder what people think. What do you think?
So in Canada, we have a bank called RBC.
Yeah, that's what
Royal Bank of Canada.
So that's I'm so excited to talk to a Canadian, and that came up for you. Yeah. And it has like a lion logo.
It does.
So fun.
Yeah. So what is RBCs?
Giving out banks. Just kidding. It's a relationship boost call.
I love it.
We get on a little 20-minute call. You tell me who you're having a struggle in your relationship with, and we will boost that relationship in one call. It's so awesome. I'm doing 365 free RBCs this year. Relationship.
Wow, that's so awesome.
Oh. So my husband's like, wait, so we're working every single day? I'm like, no, there'll be multiple in a day.
Yeah.
Like 365 doesn't mean like every single day I'll do one, but by the end of the year, I'll have done 365. So go to dropthewar.com/appointments to sign up for an RBC. It's even called that now. I changed it this morning. And we'll get on a call and boost your relationships, and you will feel like a lion. Because
I love that. Because how often do we maybe wake up and we're like, we've got this like heavy weight on our shoulders. It's like, I'm struggling with my child, or I'm struggling with my husband, or I'm struggling with a friend. And it's like, Yeah, there's
or
help
an
for that. We've got
in-law or a
Emily to help 20
neighbor.
minute, like help us just navigate that relationship.
Yeah. You got all the coaches. Laura can do that too, especially if the issue is the confidence one, because
Totally.
kind of enveloped everything as we talked about confidence.
Yeah.
So fun. Okay. So tell people about your offers and things. There's mine.
Yeah. So right now I do one-on-one coaching. I have a 12-week one-on-one coaching program where we just do a deep dive into those 3 areas that I talked about, like the feelings piece of confidence, being able to recognize your feelings and process them in helpful ways, in ways that are healthy,
Yeah.
as well as trusting yourself, which is that like diving into what are your priorities and are you currently living in line with those? And then, of course, that big piece that we talked about a lot of your relationship with yourself and your thoughts about yourself, because so
Yeah.
often we don't even realize what those are. And so
For
we do
sure.
a deep dive into that in 12 weeks, all wrapped up.
Awesome.
And it's just a really great place to start if you recognize that maybe you want greater confidence in your life, greater confidence in your motherhood, and you're not really sure where to start. It's a really great place to start. You can find me at lauradrycoaching.com. And I also, my social media platform of choice is Instagram. And so you can find me at Laura Dry Coaching. I've got a podcast as well.
Mhm.
And you can hear Emily there. She
Yeah.
was a guest on my podcast not that long ago. And I've got some free stuff there
Tell them what the
link in my bio.
podcast is called.
It's called the Confident Moms Podcast. So
Cool.
go check that out. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Super fun. Okay, awesome. So this is a perfect time. Start the new year out with the 12 weeks of getting it all
It would
figured
be
out.
it would be a great gift to yourself for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes. So good. We all need to give ourselves great gifts to
Yep.
be sure that we have what we need.
Yeah. If you're not sure that other people are going to get you great gifts, then you just go get it for yourself.
Exactly.
And I would
wrap it
love
in
to be a part
purple.
of that. So
Yay. Yay. So fun. Okay. Thanks for being here, Laura. That was so great. And
thanks
then
so
let
much
me
for having
just
me.
remind everyone, because there's no outro, that if you need help believing that you are a good mom, go to dropthewar.com/believe. I have a pre-recorded masterclass that gives you all the how-to, because it's nice in theory. Okay, but really, like, how? So, and then of course, dropthewar.com/appointments. It's plural with an S. To sign up for your RBC. Let's boost some relationships. So thanks again, Laura, for being here. Super fun.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.